It's been, of course, today is the longest day, and we have this panel discussion. There are various ways to go about describing this panel discussion. So, one way is to say that many of you were there during lunchtime where we were having a discussion on the future of NRAs and what should NRAs be doing, the Network of Rural and Agrarian Studies. So, as you are all aware, the network started as a network which was to try and get an engagement from higher educational institutes across the country to take up issues on rural and agrarian India quite seriously. So, Richa, Vasavi, Viju and all have been there right from the start. I think 2010 or so is when you had started. And at that time they were talking about the decline of interest in rural agrarian India, and therefore many universities having to take it up more seriously. If you were to do a serious review of academic institutions in India today, the situation, I'm afraid to say, could be much worse than what it was 10, 13 years back. In terms of, the orientation of academia has been completely different from what it potentially was 10 years, 20 years back. Academia is getting more and more insulated from things happening around. And this is not just one particular institution, but this is happening across. The part of it is explained by, in some institutional context, it's also this race to try and be part of the NIRF ranking, and therefore you chase metrics which are not really our own, but something that is being created from other kinds of places and institutions. And it's a difficult situation. Most institutions, IRMA included, is caught in whether to be part of it or not be part of it, and willy-nilly ends up becoming part of this rat race. A significant casualty of much of the work in some sense is the lack of engagement with civil society organizations. And I've seen this personally at IRMA in the last 8.5 years. So the number of CSOs visiting the campus have decreased over a period of time. Training programs are not anymore with the civil society organizations. The support for these kinds of initiatives have also come down. So each one's fighting their own battle for survival in some sense, which makes this somewhat more in that sense, a bit more bleak. When we started this discussion around having this 3-day conference, one of the things we tried making very clear is to try and step back a bit and not get into in a sense of frenzy. When you call civil society organizations, there's always, how do we scale up agroecology? What is the policy implication for all of this? So we said, let's not take that as the main agenda. In fact, we did try bringing the Joint Secretary of, the National Mission of Natural Farming, but we are not necessarily trying to engage directly with the state. So there are no, as you saw in the inaugural and also in the valedictory, we are not inviting any government officials per se. We are not trying to say we have a message for you. But what we are trying to also understand is, if this network, and we're very grateful to many of you who come here, and as we mentioned earlier, I would think about 45% of all the publications have actually come from civil society organizations, think tanks and others. And I think it's a kind of a reflection for academic institutions. So why are not more papers coming from academic institutions on this study? So it can work both ways. So I'd not like to spend too much time on the university side and their failings, etc. We did try hard to engage with agriculture universities, but for the Y.S. Parbar Agriculture University, we would have been happy to have the Vice Chancellor Rajeshwar Chandel ji, but unfortunately he had other commitments and he couldn't join. But what we believe is that this engagement, of course, is not going to happen in one event at Anand, but this is a beginning of an engagement with academic institutions and civil society organizations working together. And we've seen several examples of this throughout the last 2 days. So, in a sense, what we're going to request a panelist today is to slightly reverse the gaze and, we want them to pitch to academic institutions and saying why they should research on agroecology. Instead of doing the more, let's assume, exciting things on AI and ML and other things that institutions are currently engaged with. So why should they engage with agroecology? So that's one of the things we would like to suggest. And if they were to engage with agroecology, is it just all a case of, please help us go from 100 farmers to 1,000 farmers to maybe 1 lakh farmers in the next 2.5 months or whatever the time period is? What are the kinds of researchable issues that do exist? What are the examples of, this kind of interest on farmers as researchers and scientists that we are talking about? And how can we think about this in the future? So these are broadly the kinds of questions that we have. So we are asking people, so it's been a deliberate attempt not to have any academician in this panel. So my job is just to help carry forward the discussion. So we're going to ask Kapil Shah. He's the only representative of Anand Agriculture University in the conference. It's just a matter of institutional problems. We often, share this joke that the only thing that IRMA exchanges with Anand Agriculture University are the monkeys that go from here to there. So there's hardly been any other kind of so they get tired of the BD and Tobacco Research Center and come to IRMA, which of course has much more greenery and so on. But it's not unique to IRMA and AAU. I don't want to blame either IRMA or AAU for it. That's the kind of institutional challenges that we have when we talk about sustainability transitions. And I think if we look at the possibilities of collaborations, and many of us in academic institutions have this bit of a challenge. The Tata Cornell Institute is doing a lot of research on nutrition, but does not involve any Indian research institutions at all. We might say the same with APCNF also. So they trust universities abroad than universities in India. They have their own reasons for doing so. I'm not trying to blame them for that. But this is not the way sustainability transition can continue in India if universities, whether from natural sciences, social sciences, are not involved in what is a very big program which all of you are heavily engaged in. So that's the broad context in which we're going to have the panel discussion today. And as I said, some of these conversations have already happened through many of the panels. The presentations that were there, we have very good examples of collaborations between academic institutions and civil society organizations in terms of framing of research, in terms of helping out how things can happen. And we also have this discussion on what should be the direction of NRIS. So what we'll do is we'll start with, I'll just briefly introduce our 4 panelists. So I've already introduced Kapil Shah, an ex-Anand Agriculture University researcher, actively involved in the organic farming, and I think he's been very actively engaged in research, despite what you see him as an activist. So those of us who know also know that he's currently engaged with a fairly big effort in trying to do multi-locational trials on the system of mustard intensification, and to do it in a seriously research manner. So we'll start with asking Kapil Bhai some ideas on what are researchable issues which are there waiting for researchers to take up, so that researchers here or elsewhere can carry them forward in the coming few years. Over to you, Kapil.
That's what is new to talk now. Too much of things happen, talked about the whole life kind of thing. And I don't think we have any new thing to talk about. What could be new for some people anyway. Setting the context, he said why we should engage ourselves in the research. And my question is why not? This is the never before time to engage academicians and researchers in the field of agroecology. Talk about United Nations, FAO, Ministry of Agriculture, central government, state government. Of course, we know, we have been discussing, there is a kind of a right, left, center kind of thing, cow, buffalo, let it go. It will come and go, I have hope. And it will go before I die. I am sure about that too. But never before any Indian Prime Minister ever talked about promotion of natural farming, organic farming. Cooperative Minister for Cooperation, Amit Shah talking about it. So this is the political scenario. And it's definitely a compulsion, mainly because they don't have enough money to subsidize India. Very clearly say, they don't have much care about the environmental resources. There are compulsions from the climate compliances and all that. But still, this is one. Also, the health crisis, environmental crisis, and farmers' socio-economic crisis are almost at the peak. We have never before such crisis. We know this. We have been discussing this. We have been telling that Indian agriculture is at the crossroads since last 10 years, and still it is at the crossroads. So it's now time to move in the right direction without confusion. We can't wait longer than 10 years at the crossroads. Still confused. On one side, ICR could be making an agreement with the Amazon or buyer something. And on another side, PPBY, whatever you call it, whatever kind of schemes coming in. So this is a clear confusion at the government level. And the direction may definitely come not only from civil society, from academicians and researchers. I can blame myself for not preparing enough documentation of what we have been doing in Gujarat or the others. All of us have active with the farmers, with the consumers, doing whatever is required to be done, but didn't do any enough documentation. So, not only research, the need of an hour, I would say, is also documentation. How many farmers? What are the various methods used? What is the consumer behavior? How many are the consumers engaging? What are the issues related to consumers? Many such things can be. Where is the directory? A good directory of organic, natural farmers. For here, agroecology, organic and natural, please consider synonym. Okay, you know this. So, need for a documentation, and let us engage ourselves with various kind of documentations. So one is this. Before I go into giving a good list of where we can search upon, research can be done, how to engage, let me tell you frankly, money matters. If money is available for the research and academicians, they would definitely engage. This applies to CSOs, this applies to governments, this applies to researchers and academicians. Only three things can engage people. Either a temptation of money. Temptation is not a good word. Resource availability. Second, pressure from their bosses. This is what is happening today. And if the boss changes, and if you come with the buffalo-based organic farming, the whole system will talk about buffalo-based. So let us lobby at the boss's level. Is a need of an hour. Let us accept this openly. How can we engage them with the vice chancellors? I think vice chancellors is also a small thing. Secretaries, ministers. And third is still a hope. Understand? Developing new generation. And I remember engaging ourselves with the new students in agriculture universities in IRMA. Recently, I had gone for showing a trial and organizing a training for the farmers with Urmul. Suraj has come here. And your Irman is staying there for an internship. He came with us in showing And it was an interesting interaction. He said, we never seen like this. So let us engage young students, not only in research, in documentation, in various kind of education-related activities. We probably have not focused on the formal education system. I remember 13 years ago, we organized MSc PG students voluntary camp at Jatan. 35 voluntary PG students have come to understand organic farming. Such a big thing. So if you can engage those students, we will have hope. And maybe it would work after 5 years, 10 years. They are going to be in a position later. I would also suggest, can we have a journal of organic natural farming agroecology for India? It's now time to have everything documented, published. I don't think, Ramu, do we have any such journal?
Ramuji?
For India,
Starting that.
focusing on India. We don't have. We don't have. We need to have. It's now time. We should have. Some of these things I would like to have listed a month ago. So one is science and ecological economics, sustainability science and ecological economics. This is an area to work upon where people like IRMA, IIT can work. Not only hardcore agriculture, develop criteria to measure various farming systems with the lens of sustainability. For example, use resource use efficiency. Per acre of land, done. Per crop, more crop, per liter of water, we are talking about. Energy, per unit of energy invested. Finally, agriculture is an energy harvesting enterprise. Traditional agriculture, while you invest 1 unit of energy, you will be harvesting 40 to 150 kilocalories, because you are in 4 months, you are asking the plant to synthesize the photons finally into carbohydrates. So, unit of energy invested, unit of rupee invested, and if you can develop some riskiness kind of measurement, it can be, so let us understand, we still need to prove that that system is not going to work. We still need to prove that chemical agriculture is not going to grow. At the same time, if you can compare with this kind of, not only productivity, most of our research comes with the comparison of the productivity. Impact analysis, carbon emission, carbon sequestration, soil health, human health, animal health, water resources. We need to do this kind of impact analysis. Valuing ecological services, where is the system to value how much Sarvadaman Patel is contributing in terms of money by conserving birds and predators and parasites and important organisms, or sequestering the carbon. So in Indian context, you will find this in European or first world countries context. Indian context, we don't have enough data to value in terms of rupees of all this kind of ecological services these farmers are providing. People here are mostly engaged with social science, socio-economic bottlenecks in adoption of organic farming. The role of women in decision making for adoption of organic farming. Very important. Indian women are one of the best women, I would say, whatever the limitation of social structure. As far as the resilience is concerned, the transition and conversion के समय पे जो resilience की आवश्यकता रहती है किसान के दिमाग में, he needs to have a kind of a resilient mindset. Women do provide in the family that kind of resilience. Conversion होगा, please be patient. Okay, fine. Bridging generation gaps between generation gap during the adoption. Generation gap होता है पिताजी और बच्चे के बीच. Generation gap के ऊपर कोई ज्यादा काम नहीं है. Major drivers of consumer education, factors affecting quality assurance for organic consumers, factors affecting decision making to adopt organic farming, impact of overclaims, एक गाय 30 एकड़ जमीन, in adoption of and continuation of organic farming. Finding reasons to discontinue organic farming. Let us come clear. These are the issues and these are the reasons. That's why farmers have left organic farming. comparative analysis of strategies, voluntary efforts, NGOs, government incentives, review of government schemes across the states, factor affecting mindset of scientists. In 2008 we organized a kind of a survey while we were establishing standards for Sajiv Kheti for Gujarat, and we surveyed several scientists to understand what is their understanding about organic farming. 8 out of 11 say that in organic farming urea can be utilized because urea is an organic molecule. So what is the understanding of scientists? The role of hand-holding during the transition. There are a couple of points for agriculture science also, if someone wants to engage. Technical plan for transition. Methods for to decrease the loss of soil carbon and moisture in various agroclimatic zones. Breeding criteria. Plant breeding, being a student of plant breeding, I know crop varieties must be developed with a different criteria now. It's not just breeding the variety, we need different criteria to develop the variety. Crop planning and for climate resilience farming, managing nutrient deficiency in organic farming. Nitrogen is definitely a problem still in organic farming and natural farming systems. We need to provide good agronomic practices for managing especially nitrogen. Comparative study of manure fermented preparations made from various kind of farm animals. Why only cow, not buffalo? Let us go to think about Nagaland where pigs are important. So these are all the areas. We can discuss it later on if there are questions. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Kapil Bhai, for sharing a set of ideas that one can work on. I think he focused more on the socio-economic side, but I'm sure if he found the audience inclined towards natural sciences, you would have found an equal amount. Just to make 2 points, very quick points before I invite Nachiket to share some ideas. So when we were doing research on FPOs in 2017-18, and we found that the amount of research was very low. And you know, today if I were to repeat that study and look at the literature, there's sudden explosion. And a significant part of it in recent times has all come from the Agriculture University. So something that they were not engaged with some time back, they can easily shift based on some of the things that he suggested. So if it becomes part of their agenda, then for whatever reason, good or bad, the government decides that there's a lot of interest, then there's a bit of an alignment. But if that alignment is possible, can we think ahead into trying to determine the nature or direction of that kind of alignment? Can we actually get people to discuss and decide research agendas, research programs, etc. is one of the things we would like to look at. And in some sense, when we're talking about research, I'm reminded of a colleague of mine from my previous institute. When he took on activities to try and create a doctoral program in management, he was slightly ahead of his time. And he used to tell me often, he says, I'm looking at this not as something that's going to happen 1 year, 2 years, etc. I'm looking at a 10-year, 20-year frame. I want to spend my next 10 years in this particular kind of process. And that's the kind of time it would take for an institution to evolve and shift. So in a sense, I'd request all the panelists to, therefore, again, not to say that scaling up and other things are not important, but the anxiety to try and do something in 1 year, 2 years is not what is going to motivate researchers. We have to try and, the Rothamsted experiment is something that goes on for 20 long years or even more to try and get the results that you're talking about. So that's the kind of investments that's required. So if we were to take up research, again, why should people take up research on agroecology? Some reasons were provided from Kapil Bhai. So we'd like to listen from Nachiket on how does the social movement look at issues of research, where are they being pushed for, how does he see things from the field? And I think, Nachiket, you missed an interesting discussion we had, we probably went to the other panel, so about networks and social movements. So is a social movement, is a network a social movement or not? But how can social movements actually contribute to many of the exciting research? We heard this in the morning in terms of the feminist movement contributing significantly to the nature and direction of research on gender and agriculture. So similarly, this disconnect between social movements and academia is something which could perhaps be bridged, and we'd like to invite you to share your thoughts.
Come here for the longest time, and the work that I do, I got into this work primarily inspired by Korean. So somebody was saying that for him, when he came here the first time, it was like a pilgrimage. So it is. Thank you for having me here. It's been a long day, so I'll try and keep it short. And basically, I have three questions or three provocations, and hopefully we'll have time for discussion rather than me or us talking more. The first thing was I was quite surprised by the number of people here working on things related to digital technologies. So Nirzari presented something to do with the digital technology. Then Nikit is here, he's doing his PhD on digital agriculture. Anupam had a paper on this. And even otherwise, I think a couple of others, this Himachal certification, the Sitara certification uses a lot of technology on what Rajesh and others at CGM are looking at nowadays. Carbon trading and all also is very data intensive, the way that is currently these things are being proposed. So the first thing I think when you're talking in a conference about transitions is, I think a larger long-term transition that's taking place is the digital revolution we are all living through. So I feel that it is like the industrial revolution. It is going to fundamentally change society, and for the better or for the worse is going to be determined by how we engage with this. And it's going to affect all sectors, but certainly it is also coming now into agriculture in a big way. So, and as someone who has been critically following these developments, I'm primarily an activist, and we've been critical of how the government has been going about this. The government is also pushing digitalization in agriculture in a big way. But at the same time, while I'm all for resisting these technologies as much as possible, realistically I don't see us managing to stop this. I think it is something that is going to come whether we resist it or not. So I think for me the first question is how should we engage with this digital agriculture or digitalization in life in general, but specifically in agriculture. What is its place in agroecology? When you're talking about now, even all this digital agriculture is also again framed towards conventional farming, monocropping. Yesterday I was talking to Nirzari. So right now, all the satellite data also, the resolution as of now is 10 by 10 meters. So if you have mixed cropping within 10 by 10 meters, you'll have multiple crops. So multiple plants. So the satellite mapping, all these technologies are not going to work for agroecology. So how do we, if we want agroecological transformations, this is I think one question that as someone who's in the field advocating on these issues, this is a question that possibly researchers and academics can help answer, is how do we engage with this, or what is the future that we see in this paradigm. The second question for me is also in the way that the government is going about digitalization in agriculture. There's agreements with Bayer, and apart from that, with Microsoft, Amazon, ITC, Cisco, Ninja Card, Jio, Patanjali, I can go on. So, and what the government is doing is they are building a database of farmers in India. Now, the way that the government is going about it is they are defining a farmer as anybody who owns agricultural land. Now, this by definition is going to exclude several women, women farmers for sure, agricultural labor, fisher folk, Adivasi who may be going and collecting uncultivated forest produce, livestock farmers, pastoralists, and whether it is the Swaminathan committee report, doubling farmers income report, all of them, when they define farmers, they say all these categories of people are also farmers. Whereas when they're going about creating a database of farmers or a database of organic farmers, like Kapil Bhai was just saying, when the moment you define it as somebody who owns agricultural land, there are so many large kinds of farmers who are being excluded. So the second open question for me as someone who does advocacy is how do we create a database of farmers, an inclusive database which includes tenant farmers, which includes sharecroppers, or livestock farmers, landless farmers, beekeepers. So this is the second question which I don't have an answer to. So here again, any research and thinking would help. And the last one is, while Shambhuji, you're saying that we let's not just always talk about scale and how do we do these things, but I think there is also a dearth of policy research. Right now I'm based in the state of Rajasthan, and we're having elections now. And we were wondering, going to parties, our typical advocacy, trying to get our issues into manifestos. So what are the issues that we want to advocate for when we go and talk to parties, or a new party comes into power, you're meeting the minister. What are our demands? So like for the green revolution, now through history we know that these were the policy measures through which they got the green revolution. So can we have, what is our wish list of policy measures to enable this transition? So I feel that there's a lot of work going on in the ground as to how we can do agroecological farming, organic natural farming, but what kind of enabling policy environment do we need so that all these can be either scaled up or scaled out? So what is our vision for that policy environment? That is something I still don't have an answer to. So I'll stop here and leave time for discussion.
Thanks a lot, Nachiket. I think you raised some very interesting and useful points. How do we look at digital public goods? And of course, policy research is a very critical element of it. I think Srijit has had a fairly good experience of being as a... Srijit, you have a paper tomorrow on it. I missed some of the sessions, or you had one today?
We had today.
Acha. So, sorry, I was in another panel. So, there are ways by which academic institutions can shape the policy discourse, and the work of the Krishna Chaudhary Center for Development Studies in contributing to the Odisha Millet Mission has been quite significant, and there are some lessons to be learned, and also to give informed advice is a critical element which is also independent. So otherwise research is increasingly getting motivated in terms of, we will fund you, but you give me the result that I want, whether it is in favor of natural farming or in favor of entrepreneurship in a particular kind or whatever it is. I mean, so in that sense, independence and academia gets somewhat compromised. And you might have seen this with the doubling farm income story. So suddenly you had 20,000, all ICAR research centers came up with stories of is farmer ka income double ho gaya, etc. So that is not what we intend getting into, but anyway. So one of the very interesting initiatives in recent times has been the setting up of the research center in Pulivendula, which the Andhra Pradesh government under the guidance of Vijay Kumar ji has been at the forefront of it. And it's still early days, it offers a lot of hope, and I think the APCNF project has, over a period of time, come out with some very interesting research results. I think there was some earlier discussion which we were having with Murli, Swati and Vijay Kumar, whether would it have been possible for us to just present some of the evidence collated from all of this, but maybe Murli we could consider that as a webinar a bit later. But So Murli, we just want to invite you to share what's happening in Andhra Pradesh and how are you going to invite all of us to be part of that process?
I thought I'll just tell you the questions. But anyway, I'll just tell 2-3 minutes about what is this academy. Its full name is Indo-German Global Academy for Agroecological Research and Learning. Started 2022 by Honorable Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh in his own constituency, Livindula. There was a lot of land and buildings available there, so some of the land, some of the buildings have been given to us to begin with. And this year, 2023, July, we started a flagship course in the academy. We are calling it, we don't know what should be the right name, but in the lack of it, we call it Farmer Scientist course. It's like a honors graduation in natural farming. We still have to figure out who will affiliate this, whether a University of Andhra Pradesh to be established for natural farming will take it under its fold, or should we go to Gujarat, Organic Agriculture University, they are also said they are interested to affiliate. Tata Institute said will affiliate, they have a Bachelor of Vocation course, so this can be done there. So it is there. The current batch is about 600 students. All of them are natural farming practitioners, at least for a couple of years, and doing well. We call them STS farmers. I don't know whether that makes sense to you. That means some area of their land they have become chemical free in total. So that is what is called STS. 600 of them. The methodology is that a very high teacher-student ratio, very low teacher-student ratio, 1:5. That's the maximum we are intending. So right now it is 1:3.25 or something. 180 mentors are there. The philosophically 70% of the course will be field, will be practice, will be practical. 30% will be classroom, conceptual discussions, etc. So that's the broad breakup. So since they are already, and they will not stop forming during this course, 4-year course. So they will continue to do farming in their own fields. So that means we will only be able to engage them in a outside the field classroom only for a week or so, in a month. That means you have to do this entire conceptual inputs over a period of maybe 48 months, 1 week each, so 48 weeks. So that is the point. And Pulivendula will be where the classroom, curriculum design, faculty development, mentor development might be happening, module development might be happening, but the classes do happen in the respective districts. So there will be 25 hubs of classes happening. So for the time being we call them centers. There are 19 centers operating to hold 600 students. Okay. This is funded by, other than the government of AP's generous land and buildings and some support from the APCNF's own funds, government of Germany is giving us 20 million euro, starting from 22 July, probably till 27. So that is the base. And apart from the farmer scientist, the design is that the mentors also get certified in the 4-year course. So they will be getting probably integrated degree come PG diploma or something. So they will get that kind of a certification. But these are all imagine, we are imagining that he will be there. And each farmer scientist will be able to train 50 to 60 people during the 4-year period in the villages where they are working. So they will also be certified, they will get diplomas. So diploma for about 50, 60 students of the students and 600 students in the batch. Probably the batch size may go up to 1,000, 1,200. Then the mentors. All of them will get certified differently. Currently all mentors are postgraduates. Graduates or postgraduates or PhDs. They are already there. And all of them are practicing natural farmers. All of them are practicing natural farmers. So that is the second. So why all this is required? So we are inspired by the triad of NDDB, Amol, IRMA. NDDB is like a spearhead, isn't it? It facilitates collectives, collectives of dairy, collectives of agriculture. So Amol is the collectives of the people. And IRMA is the research and learning center. That's the kind of a language. That is the kind of a triad. So we thought that is the only way for us to go forward in natural farming. So we need to have 3 of them. So we need to have spearheads, we need to have collectives, we need to have research and learning centers. All 3 have to coexist, interrelated, integrated, and they need to operate. So that is the idea. So I think one of the research areas is this. What will make things like natural farming go forward the way Dairy Board, Dairy Program went forward? What is that will take us forward? So that research is an important area of concern. The old man took 50 years to reach there maybe. He started with the collective. Instead we are starting with the spearhead first, collective is coming later, and research is coming in between. So we need to see how does this happen. And we ROSS or APCNF or the academy or the people's collective that are emerging in Andhra Pradesh are only examples. But this triad has to be there in the country. Group of spearheads, group of collectives, group of research and learning centers. So that is the proposition for research 1. Second question is, what is the paradigm? This paradigm is very different from the current chemical farming paradigm. Probably Swaminathan and Subramanian, all of them created such a huge architecture in the country. ICAR architecture, universities, KVKs, is a huge entire exchange system in the country, is a huge architecture. Now you want to take on that, how can you be less there? You need to really turn them around, or you need to create a new one. We can't ignore this situation, isn't it? Imagining 15 crore farmer families in the country, 15 into 2, 30 crore men and women farmers have to switch on to natural farming in some way or the other in the long run. The current architecture cannot be doing this. We need to have a new architecture. Our current architecture has to reform itself. We need to work on that. So that is an area of research. That is an area of work. That is an area of advocacy. So that is my second proposition. Are we looking at that? Are we looking at that at all? But not, sir, not 3 years. I am talking 30 years later. Amrit Kal period pura ye. Correct? That's what we have to do. Correct? That is the second proposition for me. Third, the paradigm shift itself. Do you understand it fully? This is a hypothesis. It's like a Galileo hypothesis. I use the word Galileo to say that when that fellow said moon is round, earth is round and it is going around itself and then it goes around the sun, he was killed. Natural farming, agroecology, regenerative agriculture paradigm is that kind of paradigm. When we started working 2016 in APCNF, the scientists and research or department people said, you do it to our dead bodies. That's the statement they made. So exactly Galileo situation. So it may take that, therefore this kind of paradigm shift is understood. What is the paradigm shift here? Microbes are doing the farming. Sun is helping the microbes to do the farming. One more minute? Yeah, that's fine. And just the other item. But this is a critical issue. Why we need to do a very different kind of a research, evidence, knowledge, learning system available for natural farming, agroecology, regional agriculture. Current system is only tinkering. What is there? What is there? We really require a different system. That is my proposition 3. Proposition 4 is that the entire discipline, the way Dr. Korean talked about, we need to have. It is not just only farming. It is not only about farming we need to talk about farming to consumption. Entire chain has to be understood. If the institutions have to own it, we need to understand the institution. We need to understand the socio-economics. We need to understand the technologies. Every damn item that is helping currently agriculture in some way or other, each one of them has to be researched with the lens of the natural farming and food system lens. Natural farming, food system lens, food I mean food fiber, food fodder fiber, all of them together, integrated farming. So that lens has to be put for every discipline that concerns us. If we ignore some lens, some disciplines, then we are not doing it right. Economics has to be looked at from that, NF economics, NF value chains, NF consumer behavior, NF de-addiction situation, addiction versus de-addiction. We think chemical farming is like an addiction. So how do you go about de-addicting people? Daytime they agree, night time they go back and put fertilizers, pesticides. So how do you work on the de-addiction? So all of that. Entrepreneurs into natural farming, agroecology, value chains, entrepreneurs, how do you bring that? How do you work on carbon credits? How do you work on ecosystem credits? How do you pay for them? How do you pay for them? And how do you finance them? With the fertilizer subsidy, PM program has come into being, how does it be actually paying to farmers? Will it happen? Is only a lip service by the government of India? They announced the PM Pranam scheme other day in the budget. Will it happen? What will make it happen? So the fertilizer consumption goes down. They said they will give the money to states. Will it happen? Is it only a lip service? But they say 1.5% is the current rate of fertilizer consumption going up. Now the industry is saying it is 3.5%. If the government says 1.5, industry says 3.5, it is never going to come down. It is never going to come down. So that is all that is there. Then we also have the situation of water savings. Natural farming, agroecology, most farmers have told us that water is coming down. Water use is coming down. Use of frequency of water use is coming down. If that water use comes down, what it means to us? That is an issue. Resilience is coming up, growing up with natural farming, agroecology. What does it mean? So we need to do research there. Nutrition is an interesting area, nutrient intensity, nutrient density, and therefore the shelf life, therefore the taste of the food, all that is very different. So we need to look at nutrition as an issue. The other is the local value chains. The another paradigm is, are we trying to produce production for the world or the production for ourselves? Is the production for ourselves, production for our neighbors, production for our neighboring villages, neighboring towns, if that is the methodology, our value chains have to be redefined. So do we do research into this? Do we research into natural farming based products and research into consumer behavior in favor of this? How do they make demands in the farmer saying that we want to buy, please produce? So other is the area of the management leadership, sir. How do you manage natural farming value chain, natural farming production, natural farming programs? That is another area of research for us. And how do you make communications wider? Natural farming rate communications wider. How do you make them say attract to it? How do you make them Krishnas? No, that's a kind of logic. And the entire budget required is 5 lakh crores, roughly. That is the estimate we are saying, to transform country into natural farming, agroecology base. 5 lakh crores is only 2 times the 2 years of fertilizer subsidy. Not much, but how do you make it happen? How do you make it happen? And we said very aggressive with our 3 to 4 years we will get a village into natural farming village. It's now we don't know, it will take 10 to 15 years. So can we do more into this theory of change of natural farming, more detailed service, more work into this? So there are a lot of areas of work that needs to be done. Scope is huge, and large number of people have to be brought into thinking about research, evidence, knowledge and learning of natural farming, agroecology within the agriculture space. Huge possibility and huge investment is required, huge set of facilities are required, and supports are required. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Uri, for sharing what the Indo-German Agroecology Center is doing, and also the possibilities now. I mean, we've always struggled with this idea that the word agroecology is almost being banned from Anand Agricultural University and other universities, because it's not even a phrase that's used. It's now a newer kind of nomenclature, though it's a well-defined area of study which people are doing a lot of research elsewhere. But one initiative where a significant investment of effort is going can actually shift, research interest in this field, and that's what let's hope for in the days to come. So our last panelist is the cat amongst pigeons, so he's going to talk to us about, among other things, the consortium on agroecology transformations, right? Yes, Min, over to you. Min, I think, has had several conversations with actors across, civil society organizations, donors, research institutions, etc. So Min is going to share some insights from them. Over to you.
It's late. I'm hungry. So are all of us. So let's keep it short. I will speak as someone who is currently engaged in raising funds to bring about agroecological transformation in the country and globally, and also as someone who was involved in two major networks in the country, National Coalition for Natural Farming and the Revitalizing Native Agriculture Network. All of them are looking at, unfortunately, scale and large-scale transformation. So, from that perspective, I have some ideas on what research is required for stakeholders who are looking at the whole thing from that perspective. One is, like it was said in the opening session by Bharat Bhushan ji, Samaj. So what's the common definition? I mean, we were talking about this in the morning again at 7:30, and again there's a session at 9:30. When I go to new funders, whether CSR or global funders, and especially Indian philanthropy, they say, what is it that you are trying to do? You're not doing organic per se. I mean, you're doing organic, but you're doing more than organic. What does it really mean in terms of transformation? So if we can start looking at common definitions and bring about agreement among academia, civil society, and hopefully ICAR and government, that would be great. Second thing that not a lot is talked about is consumers. The moment some of my mentors, the moment I mention consumers, they say this is market. No. We have to think about local consumption. While circularity is very important, circularity in terms of economics, in terms of nutrients, resources, if you look at our needs basket, it has changed a lot, and it will keep changing, like Nachiket has pointed out. This is irreversible. So even our farmers, our youth in villages, they need hard cash, which means we need markets. They need to buy their mobile phones or whatever their needs are. So understanding consumer perceptions, consumer behavior, and figuring out how we position organic natural farming in the marketplace to increase uptake. There is a fear that corporates will take over. We have to also research on how we enable smaller organizations to have a dominant space when we talk about agroecological produce. Certification is another thing that people are wary of. Some of us work on it. But how do I make certification affordable and easy for smallholder farmers to be able to avail that? Is something that we should look at. I think people have already spoken about payment for ecosystem services. One is, like Kapil Bhai said, we don't know what benefits we derive by adopting these practices. Once we know the benefits, I think the farmer has to see those benefits also, financially and otherwise, recognized. One more thing that happens a lot is people are innovating on implements, on new techniques, but how do we create business models around it, which attract young people, which enable self-help groups to be able to use them to create wealth, to make livelihoods. The average age, I think there was a debate going on between me and one of other participants. The average age of a farmer is at least above 40. And when I go into the field and I talk to young people, farmers, children, and even to farmers, they say, "Ye agar kisan na bane to acha." It's better if this one is a bit dumb. Hopefully he or she will be, but the smart one should go to the city. How do we change that value system? What research is required to understand, what attracts people towards a profession, and how do we create conditions for young people to become farmers, and to also find dignity and find the profession rewarding is something that we should look at. Technology is not going away. Wheel was a technology, plow is a technology, and more technologies are going to come. You can't get away from that. So how do we adopt technologies for the benefit of the most underprivileged is what we should look at. More research is required to enable those technologies. They should reach those people and they should benefit them. Nachikeet mentioned digital solutions. AI is not going away. And also, in the previous session, some of the presenters who were doing research on adoption of natural farming and how that was affecting women and increase in labor. I think drudgery is something that some of us try to romanticize. I think we should be careful about empowerment of women versus drudgery. And I think technology will have to be used to reduce drudgery while making sure there is incomes for women and all stakeholders on the ground. There are a few other things that I have listed here. But one last thing I want to talk about is how do we strengthen civil society organizations to be able to work at this scale? Right now, from IRMA, I don't know how many students go and join CSOs or research organizations who we are referring to. How many? One of the donors told me one thing. He said, he's from IRMA, and he said, from his batch, he's 30 years past graduate, 4 people are in civil society organizations. So my question to all of us here is, what can I do to attract talent? What research is required to make sure that we get the best of the best to solve the most important and pressing problems of the planet and the people? Be it climate change, be it biodiversity loss, be it nutrition, be it livelihoods, be it employment for youth. What will it take? Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Vin. So, for the provocative and useful questions that we could all think about. So, the floor is open for questions and comments, and I see 3 hands this side. So, if from this side it's all become left.
I like to break. One is constructive, another is promotive, third is creative, and the fourth is disruptive. That's very wide. As far far as the constructive part is concerned, my submission, sir, while the journal that he's going to bring will take a couple of years, I think the vernacular press is doing a lot of good work. Let's capitalize on that. Let's look for those kinds of small gains that we can do. Two, influence the measure. That's where you change the game, sir. That's something which is very important. For example, the measure of productivity. How will you convert that when you talk of agroecology? Would you talk of something else? I think that's very, very important. Look at this here. ICRISAT produced improved sorghum. We were happy with the grain, but we are unhappy with the fodder. So please understand those things and understand that the enemy's game is what you should strip, right? The third is, I find a lot of us very anti-market. Look, we have to live with it. We have to manage it, manipulate it, and abuse it if need be. But let's not have this anti-market mindset. You know, as if they are touch me, not get it. That's as far as the constructive is. How do we engage digital? Very interesting. Sir, agriculture, I see drones, I also call that AI and ML and what I mean. Agriculture is a natural produce science. Please don't forget the basis, the origin of that. It is centered on organic molecules, right? Those principles are derived from inorganic chemistry. So can we get the dots connected? To be great. That day, I'm buying on machine learning today. Let me go one step further. What are we talking about? Cow urine and what are urine and dung urine? How does the lateral gene transfer going to happen? It happens between microbes and soil. Okay? And the animal faces don't help it at all in that process. So we are going to continue a regime of the same DNA parents because nothing is going to change. So therefore, we are going to totally destroy the genetic evolution, not manipulation. Please, the genetic evolution that nature does. So please remember what kind of and there in artificial intelligence, digital and I'd be great. Let's look at those frontier areas, crack that. Not so say drone is very good, satellite imagery is what the 30 साल के पीछे का science है माफ करना. Now third point, I think since the only guy here is Murli who seems to have money for the next 10 years, I think it's Canva. It makes sense. You said a very nice point, and I really appeal this to Shah. Murli said management leadership. Sir, IRMA is for management. I quite appreciate, Shabu, that you bring CEOs and civil society movements, some academics and some scientists. But as an anchor, you're a management theorist. Play a game, manipulating these four guys again so that we succeed using management tools to bring about the agroecology that we want. Otherwise, you're a prisoner of all of us. It's not the other way. God is what I want. Finally, Sir said, Kapil Saab said, the government fiscal is screwed up. So they want to escape out of this. Let me tell you, Ramesh told me years ago, Ramesh, you know, he said, Gopal bhai, after a few years, two things will dominate. Cacti as the food crop of India. Please remember, cacti as a food crop of India. There's another thing. We don't produce food any longer. We will be producing fuel. That's the irony. So if we don't look at the signals that we are seeing, finally I close by saying, 5 साल गपचू बैठेंगे, अपना काम, अपना प्रयास, अपना प्रयत्न करेंगे. जब तक ये ZBNF, APCNF सब बंद हो जाएगा, हम जब राज करेंगे आगे.
Research by sharing the data with each other and not doing research and sitting on it for decades to come.
Yeah, Deepak, yeah, and then we'll come back here. Yeah, has some answers to the questions that Gopal has raised. Yeah.
So thank you very much for this insightful discussion, and I think lots of future direction, specifically for research, and a new future topic has been basically we have received. When we talk about research, I think we should not only focus on the quantity of research or the new topic of the research, but the quality of research. And unfortunately, in agriculture and rural development sector, if we talk about, if we are talking about research, only IITs and IIMs are producing some good high quality research, and maybe some few basically experts and professors. So just maybe along with the quantity of research, I think how methodological rigor can be improved in research, how we can move from cross-sectional research to longitudinal research to bring evidences which are more robust, and maybe how we can improve contribution of research in theory, practice and policy. So I think these aspects needs to be focused when we talk about research. Otherwise, most of the publication which we are publishing will be limited to the C. In everyday C, there are various categories. Largely, they are published in C category, or maybe quartile 4 or 3. So we need to improve in that regard also, so that people can hear basically research voices or research findings. Thank you.
Finally, we have a question. Yeah, good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's again it's a question or a comment. So you are emphasizing on the digital technology, or we got to live through that. Right? So what exactly do you think as something which civil society or the academics could join into? I mean, somewhere I feel like data is going to be one big thing, and I also feel that maybe that's a space where probably I think the market players or the industry people doesn't have a direct reach to the production side of it. And there are attempts in that area as well, probably to reach out to the sort of, number crunching being done by the market players there to get into the, farmers' input market side as well. But do you think civil society can sort of take up that sort of role to understand and get a good solid data? And do we have that sort of a capacity at the civil society to really get into that sort of space?
Perspective in terms of scaling agroecology. One of the sort of elephant in the room is also, which I think Kalishma also pointed out the other day, was for farmers who are in the transition in the real sense of the word, like who've been stuck with facing a deadlock of the industrial agriculture and are going through a transition. Right? Typically, we say 3 years, 6 years. In different literature have different timelines in terms of how they. So, what ways? What kind of financial instruments? In US, we are seeing some kind of financial instruments that are being emerging for people who are doing this transition from conventional to agroecology. Any kind of newer financial instruments that you're seeing emerging there, maybe some kind of light that would, where we could probably bring in a civil society and other collaborations together to facilitate that kind of implementation.
One area that I didn't hear much from anyone is there is this fast growing area of plant intelligence that does not seem to be acknowledged. Both plant intelligence and bioacoustics are areas in which massive amount of new insights are being brought in, and somehow that is an area of research where we don't seem to currently be focusing, and what role it may potentially have. That is number one. I just want to plan. Second thing is there a possibility, again another area where I think research we do not have enough information is the collateral damage due to misplaced technology introduction. I think going back in time to also look at, when I spoke earlier today about the harvesters compacting the topsoil, thereby the second crop not being able to be cultivated in the Delta region in Tamil Nadu. So, is there a way of monetizing? We speak about monetizing ecosystem services, but the lack of it, because of bad technology being introduced, can those be also looked at some level? Because otherwise there is no counter argument to some of these technologies, because people are like still smoking. It's like we keep on running in the denial. So that is an area, and these two I just want to place the rest of the session.
Thank you. So let's move this side.
Came up in subtle ways in many of the things that you have already said. But I'd like to draw some attention to why markets have got such a bad name. And that is because for a lot of situations in agroecology, there are market failures. They are what we call negative externalities of chemical farming. People don't set out to ruin the soil, but that's a negative externality of giving a higher production, right? So there are negative externalities which are market failures. But there are also positive externalities which are market failures. The positive externalities of natural farming are tremendous. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, you know, all 17 of them are affected by natural farming. And there are such fantastic positive externalities which are not going rewarded.
Yeah.
So if there was a umbrella term that one can bring for whether it is donors or whether it is for research, I think it would be the positive externalities of natural farming. So in that context, even in the curriculum for agroecology, natural farming, there should be some connection with the issues of negative externalities of the traditional chemical farming approaches and the positive externalities of natural farming. And the co-benefits that happen because of natural farming should be rewarded. I think this goes back to one of the comments from the panel that, you know, you do need to reward people, and this is where the finance is coming. There was Kapilji, as you began, you mentioned some unprecedented situations that have happened now. Another unprecedented situation that is occurring is that we need photosynthesis to bring down the carbon. That's the only natural thing that will go to stay. And the biggest storage of carbon will be the soil. Here is an unprecedented situation where the circular carbon economy is aligning with natural farming. Natural farming is the only way that you can store that much carbon in the soil. So we have an unprecedented situation today where you can see the alignment of all the environmental movements and all the natural farming movements coming together. And this could be one of the greatest positive externalities of natural farming. I think the research should definitely embrace this direction and aim towards understanding this issue and of positive externalities a little better.
Thanks. Yes, Shilpa?
I just want to comment of not on the what part of it, but the how part of the research. And so 2 points there that how do we ensure that not just men farmers but also women farmers' perspectives are taken into account for all the research that have been mentioned, because agroecology has direct link with their knowledge systems, with their labor, with their health, local consumption, everything. So, so that is one. And second, related to that, how do we also ensure that they not only participate but also take leadership in the participatory research projects, processes. And maybe one question about a small topic can be added is, I've been sort of curious, I don't know, APCNF might have already done that type of research, but has there been any changes in the agroecological adoption or scale up if when women are the CRPs there, women are in the leadership position? What difference? I'm just curious to know. Does it make any difference? Not make any? I mean, I can understand from the empowerment perspective, but from the agroecology adoption perspective.
Thanks, Shilpa.
We currently have no knowledge of, like, we do not have people who own land. We have no knowledge of like farming through like families. But we want to go back to it because we have seen what is at this end, and then so my question is that can we look into frameworks for volunteering, even short-term volunteering for urban folks in with farmers, because that that at least gives some direct link. And I think the short-term part is important because a lot of people who, when they have no clue of the other side, like a direct plunge into this might be difficult. So, and the second question is that when you said that to retain talent in this space, like how many people stay in civil society organizations even after graduating from degrees which sort of are enabled to do so. I feel, I mean, a big reason is because tech jobs have much more money, like computer science and its advances has almost all the money, right? So I feel like could maybe concepts like universal basic income or something could help in some ways, at least making sure that at least a certain fraction is given to everybody so that at least their basics of food and shelter, I mean, they need not do something terribly wrong to the ecology or themselves to be able to even get that basic need.
Thanks. Yeah.
Since yesterday, and even much of what you've elaborated, focuses on agroecology as a form of cultivation and production. But we know from the Green Revolution experience, what was really and what is manifesting in this big crisis is that the Green Revolution consolidated the existing caste-based access to land, and therefore it removed the best, which is good knowledge and skills, but kept the worst, which was the caste-based system. So I'm not saying agroecology needs to address that directly, but can we not envisage the promotion of agroecology for all four of you raised all these in all these dimensions as a way in which new production units have to be put in place? This is something that I've been struggling with. For example, we know, Kapilji, you said very importantly that the subsidies that are given to the chemical industrial agriculture is really the big problem. In fact, that can be given somewhere else. So production units, for example, small and marginal farmers coming together irrespective of caste, and therefore then being not subsidized, but you are incentivizing them to come into units of production that go beyond caste, and the consolidation of holding, because we know the average holding is small. So that's one, caste, consolidation of holdings, incentivizing for conservation and restoration of land, which addresses all the degradation of things, and then incentivizing to produce natural food or whatever, crops through natural things. Unless we come up with a holistic alternative, I think just looking at, this has been a source of great frustration for me. I mean, we cultivate only 2.5 acres of land, and again and again we see that this is a big limitation. So can we conceptualize this holistically, and because this gathering is so good, can we all distribute this responsibility and think together? I don't think any of us, I wish Sukhpal was there, because the economics of it needs to be worked out thoroughly. That instead of these subsidies, which are actually going to large farmers, and reproducing all the problems of chemical agriculture, consolidating the hold of large, big upper caste into these political parties, all the problems, can we not see this in a much more holistic perspective and as an alternative perspective?
To build capacities of CSOs, but there is a strong need of an induction program for different stakeholders in the country, because there are a lot many things are going on, and when I meet new stakeholders, especially social media influencers, media persons, they don't know anything, and they keep saying anything they want. So there is a strong need of that. Thank you.
In Delhi. The reason why this is pertinent is because I am so excited to hear about all the research potential that each one of you have outlined. But the difficulty is that, it's like that old saying that when some fellow was looking for his car keys in a dark parking lot, and someone else asked him, oh, you're looking here, is this where your keys fell? Because he was looking under the lamp. And he said, no, but this is where the light is, that's why I'm looking for the keys here. The thing is that the keys are somewhere else. And I'm just saying that the social sciences, students of the social sciences, are hugely underestimated in terms of the research capacity for these questions. And I think I'd also like to point out why, because people said, why do IRMA students and others do not work? I don't know. But when we teach the politics of development, let's all acknowledge that these are deeply political issues, and you need critical mind to apply to the kind of research that you all seem to outline as very necessary. And I think that, and this is a very serious call and request, that if we can look at linking disciplines that have not traditionally been seen as, the students of these disciplines not seen as potential researchers, we should change that mindset. And that where probably you're going to find people with clear commitment to the kinds of issues that we all are committed to here. So, looking at agroecology, they don't need, as we know, a few of our students who've gone into work in the CSOs have done very well because they know how to read, write, apply themselves, have some basic skills and critical understanding. That's the important. So, I'm actually speaking to just flag the fact that we really need to have this kind of collaboration, and I hope that one of the outcomes of this meeting and our conversations is that we are able to set up some kind of systems for that. Thank you.
2 years back in the same venue, and two things happened during that venue which has been somewhat lasting. So the obvious thing would have said, let IRMA students get involved in agroecology and this and that. And of course we tried that and we hit a wall. We probably didn't get many. Some of them went and spent time in with APCNF, and APCNF was saying they were not doing enough work and all those things. And whatever happened, didn't happen, whatever it is. At the same time, IRMA opened up for the first time to students who came from Lok Bharati. And those students, there were 7 students who came. Their faculty said, we don't have bus fare to come here. Can you even support us to come here? Now, something that happened through them, and they had independently started a BSc or Bachelor's in Vocational Studies in Organic Farming. And the students who came here then had an opportunity to interact with civil society organizations in Gujarat. A year back later, when we were trying to do a research on trying to do a survey, a perception survey amongst farmers, these students came in so handy in trying to cover a significant part of Gujarat and understanding what is there. We were able to work along with them, of course, with guidance from Kapil Shah and many others. The second thing that happened, which of course Aditya did mention, was the fact that it was when in that meeting that Kandarp Mewada got a chance to interact with people. He was from Anand Agriculture University, he respects Kapil Shah a lot, and that exposure slowly evolved into a training program which kind of somewhat broke the silos of the situation of state and civil society in Gujarat, where everyone was doing independently. And together, jointly, they designed a training program which I think was spoken of a bit in one of the discussions today. So I think sometimes gatherings like this can provide, unexpected opportunities which one should continue to explore. And I consider these as important institutional innovations which actually breaks barriers across natural sciences, social sciences, academia, management, etc., etc. Yeah. So I spoke too much. Yeah. Over to you, 30 seconds each.
So a couple of things have already came in, but it was listed here, and I think I should talk about it. And he initiated it rightly. We need to invest in individuals. Generally, the philanthropies and organizations are providing grants to the organizations, big or small. You should have FCRA, you should have trust or cooperative or something like that. Individuals are the change makers. And you expose them to crisis, health crisis, environmental crisis. Farmer के साथ रहेगा तो पता चलेगा कि क्या दिक्कत है. Expose them. This is how I also got inspired. Many others. And the young age, between 20 to 25, where people are dreaming about their life, is the best time to touch it. We don't want to distract them, but we want to make them understand the reality of India, rural India. inspiring, meeting and opposing with inspiring people, farmers, definitely change. There is no doubt about it. Age matters, definitely age matters. Shiva, I remember Shiva. Many you will find, all of us who are really change makers have decided to work on alternative work between this age. Don't forget. And secondly, because of their academicians and researchers here, if some of you are not aware of some of the organizations, I so far, basically all are the Europe-based organizations, the International Society for Organic Agriculture Food Systems, ACROFUS, International Center for Research in Organic Agriculture, and Research Institute for Organic Agriculture, FIDL. You will find what a kind of research going on. You will find various tools also there. I can list, I can send to the group also. These are the organizations already working, thousands of papers you will find there. Thank you.
Thanks, Kumar. Yes, Smith.
Sorry, 2 minutes.
Thank you. One is volunteering. There is a whole movement globally called WOOFing. So please check it out. You can volunteer even today. WOOFing. So check it out. And in India also there are many places where you can volunteer. But I think you are right.
This is the woofers, is it?
Yeah.
Yes. Billing workers on organic.
And with respect to talent, in addition to finding more, compensation, I think also respect and dignity for people who are solving bigger problems. Instead of solving the problem of battery life in iPhones, they're trying to solve problems around food systems, nutrition, the future of mankind, the future of living systems. They should be also respected a little bit more. So how do we change these values are very important in my mind. With respect to this transition fund for farmers, Shamil, I mentioned CAT now very briefly. So one is absolutely we need that fund, and that fund has to be significant. It cannot be piddly. Transition fund for farmers who are making that move into organic culture farming. So I think the government will have to play a major role. Some of the things are happening already with PM Kisan and others. But in addition to that, what we are planning to do is create a structure, first of all a common framework as to what is required at a landscape level for transition to happen in addition to funding. It's very critical, because if you don't do insurance and do everything else, the farmer still has exposure to risk. It has to happen. The second thing is, right now there is no, we are trying to solve a systems level problem with a project approach. 500 farmer train kar diye, kahin seed baat di. That is not going to solve it. This is a huge problem, right? So now how do we create systems level solutions by bringing different stakeholders together onto one platform? So one is civil society at scale. Second is enablers like IRMA, consultants, research organizations, who all work on a common framework, a common approach. Common approach is difficult. I know we need diversity, but at least have a common nomenclature of measures and so on. And finally, funders. So we are in the process to co-create a funders alliance where even funders collaborate. Where somebody is investing on water, the other goes and invests on farmers training, and the other one comes and does seeds or whatever. So hopefully, and this is being called the Consortium for Agroecological Transformations. Kavitaji mentioned this in the afternoon today. And hopefully many of you will be involved in that process. We are very committed that this time round, like Kapil Bhai said, this is a great opportunity for this transformation to happen. So everybody should be included in that. And that's the effort we will make. Thank you.
I'll just take 2-3 points. Because women do well or not. Women do well in agroecology. There's no doubt on that. Our empirical data accumulated super is telling the way our cadres are increasing day by day. We've cost 50%, it is reaching 60, it will increase. So women do well in taking it forward. And they bring their partners along with later. So So that is also there, not that we are ignoring. Second is investing in human beings is the critical thing. We also take, therefore, a large internships programs we are creating, supporting champions. Champions in the villages, champions in the programs, champions in the organizations. Champions matter. Mr. Vijayakumar matters like that. No? That's the kind of a thing. Okay. The third is that point that is correct to me in the biology, sir. It's not just the chemistry of the agriculture was about more about chemistry. Now the time is to talk more about biology. Biology, only 1% of the microbes are known, 99% is unknown. How do they operate? All that. Biology is to take the center stage. Crunch is there, Madam Karishma was saying, crunch is there. They're not very far from human civilization going down the drain if we don't do something about it. Urgency is there. We can't say we'll wait for 100 years to do something about it. So we need urgency. So for urgency, solutions are also local. People are able to give. We need to take. We need to learn from that. Somebody up there will not know all the solutions. Modi will not know everything. So like that. So we should look at that. Democratize, localize, customize, communitize. So that kind of a research. That kind of a learning. That's very critical. We done a one study foresight. But to say if agroecology, natural farming becomes the norm 20 years later, 30 years later, how does it look like? A very interesting research. I think we should do more such researches. The other is money being given by governments is too little. Money being given by donors is too little. Money given by CSR is too little. FCRA money is too little. So we need to really increase money for this work. It is a matter that requires all resources, human resources, yes, financial resources, definitely yes. Yeah, that's the other thing that I just wanted to say that we need to do research into how to finance properly. We need to do more about it.
Yeah, I'll just respond only to one point. First, just to clarify at least my stance on digitalization. I think for the environment and from an ecological point of view, it's an unmitigated disaster. But having said that, I'm carrying a mobile in my pocket and I'm contributing to us working towards that disaster. But actually on digitalization also, then to answer your questions is not so much on the production aspects. I mean, I gave the example of satellite technology only so that it's immediately tangible, but how can we use digitalization to maybe help get farmers more justice? So right now, I mean, the way digitalization is proceeding, it is not inconceivable that in the future, the present day Arthyas will get replaced by a Flipkart or an Amazon. But at least now the advantage is the transaction between the farmer and the Arthya is not visible. But once it is happening in the digital domain, can we then pressurize and advocate that these transactions are visible, therefore then farmers are getting MST. So what kind of policies do we need in such a paradigm that will maybe help upturn power structures? This is a time where there is, I think, an opportunity to somewhere help where power is becoming more unequal to sort of make it equal. So how will digitalization affect society? How will it affect social relations? How will it affect power relations, politics? And here, when a transition is going on, can we try and ensure that it is more just for farmers? So that, I think, is, at least personally, that's where I'm more interested, rather than the technology side of it, but how it will what implications it has for society and for farmers.
So thank you very much to Kapil Bhai, Min, Muralidhar and Nachiket for some very valuable insights, and all of you for actively contributing to capturing all the things that we have said very nicely. So we have a laundry list of research agenda that can engage NRAs for the next 10 years. So your job is done, Richa. Okay, so it's about time to go for a gala dinner. Some of you have been complaining that you've not had protein and paneer and all those kinds of things. So, so please do head straight to the same place. The caterer has changed, and you'll realize it as soon as you get there. And we have invited the volunteers and members of the organizing conference committee and faculty. I don't know how many of them will come, but please feel free to interact with them and share some of your thoughts and insights with them as well. So, a final announcement for tomorrow morning. So we leave promptly at 6:30, and good news for you is I'm not going to be there to try and force you into the bus. But all of that will be done by Anish. Please stand up and so he's a very gentle character, but he's supposed to ensure that there is a 56-seater bus or something that's coming, right? Yeah, so all of you will have to, we may have one other vehicle, so the bus is not going to wait for anyone, and we've missed several buses, you can miss this also, there's no problem. We'll leave promptly at 6:30, and you will come back and have breakfast here. Those who have opted not to come can have breakfast at their own time. We have to ensure that we are back latest by 9:30. So we'll probably leave by 8:30 or 9 there. Sarvadaman Patel will offer us a cup of tea, and he's promised us a nice morning walk. I'll try and join you midway, on the way somewhere. But please organize yourself and ensure that you don't miss the bus. The only messages that will come will be through the group, which all of you are part of, and also ensure that you made the payment to Anish through the form that was sent, the details that were sent. And we look forward to a very energizing morning walk tomorrow, where some of these things get clarified much better, and it's always a pleasure to be with Sarvadaman ji. And we were in fact wondering whether we should have part of the conference there instead of these rooms, but it didn't happen this time. We'll do it some other time. So do join us all for dinner, and we'll meet again after dinner. Min and others are going to solve the problem of natural and organic farming. So when you sleep at 11 o'clock, please remember that you have to also, wake up in time to join for this very exciting field. Thank you very much.